The completion of this first movement, the flower of life, has also another movement that is called the leg release, in which we change the placements of the legs in order to continue with the next movement. The leg release, I would like to just show it to you how it is. After the completion of the lateral release and then completing in foundation and crown, the movement goes to earth, and then from earth, as it releases the movement through the spine, and it lifts the pelvic floor, it allows the legs to release from this crisscross. And then as the body moves back into a spiral, the legs can be extended. And then we change the direction of the leg. Whatever was front goes back, and then it's a spiral, taking you back again into 0 point. So I'll do it one more time to change it from here. The count goes from 1, 2, 3, releasing the pelvis, 1, 2, releasing the legs, 3, 4. It's a spiral of the shoulder girdle and the torso to bring you back into 0 point. Okay? The purpose of this movement, the release of the legs, is twofold. One is to release you from being seated for too long in the practice of the movements. And second is that as we release the legs, we release the hips. And also we change the placements of the legs, because when we are crisscross, one leg is closer to you than the other one. And they are not necessarily balanced then, because one is closer and they are asymmetrically, so to speak. So when we change in the placement and we move in the legs, whatever was in the front goes in the back, and therefore we are equalizing the right and the left and the leg by alternating the crisscross. Okay? So I would like to do it based in this direction. And this is a practice that will help you enormously, because remember that we told you in the suspensions that once you go to earth, and the connection of earth releases the shoulder girdle, so the hip becomes free to move. So as the shoulder girdle and the hips become free to move, to roll, then the spine going back releases the legs. And here is a very good place because it releases the lower back too. And then we crisscross and we come back to the center. And just before we bring in the momentum to the center, the arm creates the spiral that allow us to return to 0 point. And then we are ready then, therefore, for the second movement. So remember that the practice, I can't encourage you enough to practice the first part of the movement, because you wanted to avoid that you're going to start moving back and down. You're knowing that going to earth implies that you're expanding vertical before you start rolling, or as you start rolling in the hip. So remember that we would like to deprive you from the idea that you're just going to go down and around you, and you're going to assist you that you're going to be around and extending through the spine as you're extending the legs. So you're not going down, but you're up. And then from then, as you come back and you're arriving to 0 point and your arms are supporting you, the spiral of the arms reverses the shoulder girdle and rotate the shoulder girdle to allow you to return to the suspension of 0 point balance. All right? So many things are happening in this movement, but as you practice, you will notice that you're learning to go to earth, to release to roll the hips, because you're learning to roll the hips from the seated bones. You don't roll the hip by pushing down in order to go back. On the contrary, you're rolling through the bones, and then that will release the leg immediately up. You will feel that going through you and the legs up is a natural thing. Continue a little bit longer with the subtlety of this movement, because this movement is very important, because you're going to do it many, many times in different movements. So what we're asking you is that when you start going to earth in order to roll the seated bones, that you don't go down in the spine, but also you would not like to just to go up in the spine, because if you go up in the spine, then you can roll. So what you're discovering in this particular movement is that your spine adjusts itself into a little bit of an inner arc. An inner arc means that it's not completely extended, it's just the inner arc here, but it's not also going down into you. So you're finding the balance of the movement, and then by the very nature of the balance, you see the legs just are suspended here. Because if I go down, I can't suspend it. I'm only in the surface of the leg. If I go up, I'm only in the bottom of the leg, so I'm not in the center of the leg. So the inner arc, rolling and avoiding going down or going too much in the other direction, will give you the relationship with your legs. And it will show you that the legs release through the hip, therefore to allow you to roll back and to come back without no compressions in the hips. The reason that this first movement of rolling through the pelvis and be able to release the legs is so important, because when we practice and we begin to understand it and explore it, we are erasing a reflex. And most of us innocently, the reflex that we have, that if we go back, we go up in order to support ourselves. And what we're learning is that when you go back, you roll within, and then you move through the spine and the movement, and you don't support yourself with your shoulders. Otherwise, what happens is that we use the shoulders as means to sense that we are supporting ourselves. And what we're searching, again, is the movement of the spine that allow us to elongate through the movement. So remember that when we use the word, the first reflex, discovering the first impulse for movement in this particular movement, and how, as I said, rolling through the pelvis and releasing the legs, and then finding the inner arc when you release the legs, is going to help you enormously in many movements, and especially in the execution of this fourth section.